I'm joined now by the founder of Democracy Defenders Fund and Obama ambassador and White House ethics czar, Norm Eisen. Norm, thanks so much for joining me. I want to discuss right now a major situation that's unfolding in the courts that has to do with both the U.S. Supreme Court and an emergency motion that was filed. Can you explain what just happened?
Brian, one of the most tragic events in certainly my 30 plus years of following the Supreme Court, I think one that historians will look back on with horror. The Supreme Court, or perhaps I should call them John Roberts MAGA Tribunal, allowed the deportation of migrants from the United States to a U.S. military facility in Djibouti on the Horn of Africa to South Sudan, where they face a risk of torture. Nevertheless, the Supreme Court allowed that third country deportation there to South Sudan, in my view, without proper due process. It's shocking.
So, in terms of the emergency motion, can you explain what the plaintiffs were seeking to do?
This is a case about a group of 8 migrants whose deportation from the United States to our military base in Djibouti, where they were kept in a air conditioned cargo holder. I mean, it's unbelievable. This is a case where a judge, Judge Brian Murphy in the District of Massachusetts, had said you can't deport them. Nevertheless, the United States did deport them in defiance of his orders. It went up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court held over dissents from the three Democratic appointed minority members of the court. The Roberts MAGA Tribunal said they can be deported, they can be sent abroad. And then they went back to court and said, wait a minute, the government is going to send us to South Sudan, where we have danger of being tortured. First, they went to a court at District of Columbia federal court on an emergency basis. That judge, Judge Moss, transferred the case back to Judge Brian Murphy. And Judge Murphy said, it's wrong, I disagree with it, but I have to follow the Supreme Court. He refused to stop the deportation. And as a result, these migrants were sent from Djibouti, where they were on the U.S. military base, to South Sudan, a country violent, on the brink of civil war, where there's a risk of torture, experts say. There's a U.S. statute that says you can't send individuals to a country where they're going to be tortured. Nevertheless, the Supreme Court, the MAGA tribunal, refused to stop it. This is the last straw for this unjust Supreme Court that's acting as Trump's enablers in this case, Brian.
I'm having a little bit of trouble understanding how it's acceptable or certainly legal that you can send somebody to a country that they didn't come from. I mean, is the purpose of deportation to get them back to where they came, or is it just to purge them from the country, and wherever they land on the map is acceptable as far as the U.S. government is concerned?
It's sick. It's a disgrace. And what the lawyers for these individuals were arguing was that it's not enough that there have been findings that they're subject to deportation. We now need to have additional process for the issue you identified. But apparently, the court is not explaining the basis why they have stayed the district court's order that said we do need to have process. They're at risk of being tortured. The court blocked that order. Apparently, they're thinking, we're guessing here, apparently their thinking is, well, they've had some process already to leave the United States, and It's up to the executive where they go. But my God, Brian, this is the United States of America. We're sending these individuals to a country, South Sudan, violent, dangerous. They are at risk of torture there, and it's heinous. It ranks with the very worst decisions when you look back at the history of this Supreme Court. Inhumane, cruel, unconstitutional, against the statute. But it must be some reasoning like that that they've received the minimum amount of process. It's sick.
And so, what do you presume the Trump administration's goal is by virtue of doing this? Because clearly, the countries that they're looking for, these third countries that they're looking for to deport, to exile, to disappear immigrants who are in the United States too, these are not vacation destinations. I mean, the places that they're sending them are not places that I think any of these immigrants would want to go. And so, what is the goal for the Trump administration, as far as you know?
They're embarked upon a reign of terror, and they want to frighten migrants who are here. They want to broadcast around the world that the United States is a dangerous and unjust place. But why would we want our allies to see that? It's not targeted.
Yeah.
This is a reign of terror that is offending all decent human beings around the world. It's not just discouraging migrants from coming here, it's frightening away tourism, one of the
Right.
major bases for our economy. Look at the boom in IT, the internet, AI. It's fueled by innovators and engineers who come to this country from all over the world. They're intimidating and frightening those people. They're talking about going after migrants who are lawfully here. They're sweeping some of them up in this dragnet. So it's a draconian overreach. It's grotesque. It's wrong. Donald Trump is underwater with the American public on the immigration issue, which used to be one of his strongest issues, because of this kind of cruel overreach. And when he faces voters, I think in Virginia, where it's been one of the highest per capita places of these reckless and dangerous and intentionally wrong policies in the 2025 elections in New Jersey, and then in 2026, it's going to be a referendum. I predict it's going to be a thumping loss at the ballot box for Donald Trump, who's also struggling in polls. This is not what the American people want. And shame on the Roberts Court. I've written about the need to reform the court. A number of the justices who are there illegitimately because of manipulations in the United States Senate. And we're going to have to have wholesale reform because the MAGA majority on the Roberts Court are enabling Donald Trump's unconstitutional, illegal, cruel, and inhumane behavior.
But do you have any concern that in kind of some backwards way, because this new one big beautiful bill passed, it gives a massive amount of money to ICE's budget, and so even though they're kind of carrying out these draconian plans, even though their legality is questionable at best, even though they have a Supreme Court in their pockets to allow them to perpetuate this stuff, that we're actually going to see more and more and more by virtue of the sheer deluge of funds that they're going to be getting as the result of this bill. I've spoken about this before, but ICE's budget, if it was a military, it would be the 16th biggest military in the entire world. ICE will have more funding than Brazil and Israel's military in total.
Well, the line that the Supreme Court has drawn is that before individuals are deported, they're entitled to due process notice and an opportunity to be heard. Now, that once that minimum has been achieved, Trump is running amok, sending people to third countries. Brian, we need to surge. Nobody would have thought that we'd get almost 200 orders stopping different parts of the Trump's agenda 200 times. Even this corrupt MAGA majority on the court has not been able to intervene
Yeah.
in that sheer volume. And when you called me and asked me if I'd come on, you said, "Are you working?" I said, "Yes, I am. I'm preparing the lawsuits for next week."
Yeah.
So, myself, Democracy Defenders Fund, the wonderful democracy litigating organizations that we work, other actors defending the Constitution, like the state AGs, like the labor movement. That's what's made possible. We have to double down, and we intend to do it. We're going to work twice as hard. Unfortunately, the collaborators in the United States Congress and in the Supreme Court, Article 1 and Article 3 MAGA majorities collaborating with Article 2 Trump and his cronies in the executive branch are going to make a lot of work for the courts, but we're just going to keep on going. And I will say, I got to be honest about the threat. I have to be honest about how corrupt I think this decision is. Don't take my word for it. Read the minority's dissents excoriating what happened. Really, it's the first case. Today was a follow-on. It's the first case that's so terribly broken unanimous minority opposition in part one. Today was just part two of enforcing that. Um, Even against all that, we've been able to push the ball forward. Politico has a story this weekend that, notwithstanding the Supreme Court's terrible decision in the CASA case on nationwide injunctions, we've just seen a flurry of class actions and other positive rulings this week in which the courts and the litigants are keeping on going. As you know, we were on file with a class action about birthright citizenship. Within 2 hours, I came on your show to announce it that day that terrible Supreme Court decision was announced. The hill has gotten steeper. We're just going to run twice as hard.
Well, of course, for everybody watching who's looking to help the efforts of those people like Norm, like the folks at State Democracy Defenders who are actually fighting this stuff on the front lines in the courts where it matters, I'm going to put a link to Democracy Defenders Fund right here on this screen and also in the post description of this video. Norm, as always, thank you for the work you're doing and for coming on with me today.
Back to drafting my next complaint, Brian.